Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. For 25 years, Officer Marcus Dreyer answered calls that most people would rather forget. Accidents on rain-slicked highways, disputes that turned ugly, moments that tested everything. He thought he knew about human nature, but nothing prepared him for that voice. It was a cold November night in Ridgewood, a small town that time seemed to have forgotten, the kind of place where storefronts stood empty and families struggled quietly behind closed doors. Marcus was finishing his shift, already thinking about the cold coffee waiting in his truck when the radio crackled. "Unit 7, we have a call from Winslow Heights, apartment 4B. Caller is a child." Marcus frowned. Kids sometimes dialed by accident. Prank calls happened. But something in the dispatcher's voice made him pause. "Patching through," she said. Then he heard her. "Sir, the baby is coming." The voice was small, soft, a little girl, maybe 5 years old. But here is what made Marcus grip the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. She was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes not from peace, but from practice. "Sweetheart," Marcus said carefully, "where are your parents?" "Mommy is on the bathroom floor. She will not wake up." In the background, Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. Faint moaning, the sound of running water, and then the little girl's voice again, steady as a heartbeat. "I take care of her. I always take care of her." Marcus hit the lights. The sirens screamed into the night. Winslow Heights rose from the darkness like a forgotten promise. Once, these buildings housed families chasing the American dream. Now, paint peeled from the walls, and hallways smelled of mildew and resignation. Apartment 4B, 3rd floor, no elevator. Marcus took the stairs 2 at a time, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. When he reached the door, it was unlocked. He pushed it open and stepped inside. The apartment was dark, cold. The smell of old food hung in the air. His flashlight swept across the room, revealing scattered toys, a television with a cracked screen, and drawings taped to the wall with yellowed tape. Suns with big smiles, houses with chimneys, stick figures holding hands. Then he saw her. She stood in the hallway, no taller than his waist, wearing a nightgown too thin for the weather. Her hair was blonde, tangled. Her eyes were large, watching him with an expression that belonged on someone much older. In her arms, she clutched a worn blanket like a shield. "You came," she said simply. Marcus knelt down to her level. "What is your name, sweetheart?" "Lily." "Lily, I am Officer Dreyer. I am here to help. Can you show me where your mommy is?" Lily nodded. Without hesitation, she turned and walked down the hallway, her small feet silent on the cold floor. Marcus followed, his heart pounding. She stopped at a door. The bathroom. "She is in there," Lily said. Then, almost as an afterthought, "Do not worry. I called you. Everything will be okay now." Marcus pushed the door open. What he saw made him take a step back. A woman lay on the floor, pale as paper, clearly in distress. Water pooled around her from an overflowing tub. Towels were piled nearby, placed there by small hands trying to help. And in that moment, Marcus understood something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. This little girl, barely 5 years old, had been carrying a weight no child should ever know. He reached for his radio, his voice urgent. "Dispatch! I need an ambulance at Winslow Heights, apartment 4B. Immediately. We have a woman in labor and—" He looked back at Lily, standing in the doorway, still holding her blanket. "And a child who needs help more than she knows." Lily tilted her head, watching him with those ancient eyes. "The baby is coming," she said again. "I told you." Marcus had seen many things in his years on the force, but he had never delivered a baby. His hands trembled as he knelt beside the woman on the bathroom floor. She was young, maybe early 30s, but suffering had aged. Her face. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale and damp with sweat. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Marcus asked, gently tapping her cheek. "Help is on the way. I need you to stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, confused, frightened. She tried to speak, but only a weak moan escaped her lips. The radio crackled. A calm voice cut through the static. "Officer Dreyer, this is Donna Whitfield, paramedic. The nearest ambulance is 20 minutes out. I am going to talk you through this." 20 minutes. It might as well have been 20 hours. "The baby is not going to wait," Donna continued. "You need to be ready." Marcus looked around the small bathroom. Cracked tiles, a single flickering bulb, towels that Lily had stacked in a neat pile as if preparing for this moment long before it arrived. "Tell me what to do," Marcus said. From the hallway, a small voice drifted in. Lily was singing a lullaby, soft and slightly off-key, the kind of song a mother hums to chase away nightmares. "Hush, little baby, do not say a word." Marcus did not know why, but that song steadied him. His hands stopped shaking. Donna's voice guided him through each step. What to watch for, how to help, when to act and when to wait. The minutes stretched like hours, filled with tension and whispered prayers. Then it happened. A cry, small and weak, but unmistakably alive. A baby girl, tiny and fragile, gasping her first breaths of cold November air. Marcus wrapped her carefully in a clean towel that Lily had brought without being asked. The little girl had appeared at the door, silent as a ghost, holding the towel out with both hands. "She is so small," Lily whispered, peering at the baby with wonder. "She is strong," Marcus replied, though he was not sure if he was telling the truth or making a wish. The mother stirred. Her eyes opened wider now, searching. "My baby," she breathed. "Is she—" "She is here," Marcus said gently, placing the newborn in her arms. "She is breathing. You did it." Tears slid down the woman's cheeks. She looked at the tiny face nestled against her chest, then up. At Lily, who stood watching from the doorway. "Come here, sweetheart," the mother whispered. Lily hesitated. Then she crossed the small bathroom and knelt beside her mother, one small hand reaching out to touch the baby's cheek. "I knew it was a sister," Lily said softly. "You talked to her. Sometimes, when you thought I was sleeping." The mother closed her eyes, more tears falling. The sound of sirens finally broke through the night. Red and blue lights flickered through the frosted window. Heavy footsteps echoed up the stairwell. The paramedics arrived like angels in uniform. They moved with practiced efficiency, assessing the mother, checking the baby, speaking in calm medical terms that Marcus only half understood. But as they prepared to transport the woman to the hospital, one of the paramedics paused. He was looking at Lily. More specifically, he was looking at her stomach. Under the thin nightgown, it appeared swollen, distended, wrong. The paramedic exchanged a glance with his partner. A silent conversation passed between them. Marcus noticed. His relief turned to ice. "Officer," the paramedic said quietly, pulling Marcus aside. "That little girl needs to be examined. Something is not right." Marcus looked back at Lily. She stood alone now, clutching her blanket, watching her mother being lifted onto a stretcher. Her face showed no fear, no confusion, just patience. The patience of a child who had learned to wait for things that never came. "I will make, Sure, she is taken care of," Marcus said. But even as he spoke the words, a terrible question formed in his mind. What had been happening inside apartment 4B? And how long had this little girl been invisible to the world? The ambulance cut through the empty streets of Ridgewood, its sirens echoing. Off-darkened buildings. Inside, the woman drifted between consciousness and shadow. Her name was Helena Mercer. She was 32 years old, though tonight she looked much older. Marcus followed in his patrol car. Lily buckled safely in the back seat. She had not cried, had not asked questions. She simply watched the ambulance lights ahead, her small hands folded in her lap. "Your mommy is going to be okay," Marcus said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Lily nodded slowly. "She gets tired a lot, but she always wakes up." The words hit Marcus like a stone. How many times had this child watched her mother collapse? How many nights had she stood guard, waiting, hoping? St. Catherine's Hospital appeared through the windshield, its lights blazing against the dark sky. The ambulance doors flew open, and medical staff rushed Helena inside. The baby went straight to the neonatal unit. Premature, underweight, but fighting. Marcus led Lily through the bright corridors to a waiting room with plastic chairs and magazines no one ever read. A kind nurse brought Lily paper and crayons, and the girl immediately began to draw. Yellow suns, smiling flowers, a house with a chimney. The same. Drawings that covered the walls of apartment 4B. An hour passed. Then 2. Just after 4 in the morning, a woman appeared in the doorway. She had gray hair pulled back in a practical bun and tired eyes that had seen too many difficult cases. "Officer Dreyer, I am Priscilla Downey, Social Services." Marcus stood and shook her hand. Priscilla glanced at Lily, who continued drawing without looking up. "I have been reviewing the records," Priscilla said quietly, pulling Marcus to the corner of the room. "Or rather, the lack of them." "What do you mean?" "This child does not exist in any system. No school enrollment, no medical records for the past 3 years, no vaccinations, no checkups, nothing." Priscilla paused, her expression heavy. "It is as if she vanished." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. How is that possible? Poverty, isolation, a mother too sick or too overwhelmed to navigate the system. Priscilla shook her head. "It happens more than people want to believe. Families fall through the cracks. Children become invisible." She looked back at Lily, still drawing her sunny pictures. "We need to examine her," Priscilla continued. "The paramedics flagged something concerning. Her abdomen is distended. At first glance, it looks like—" She hesitated. "Like what?" "Like something that should not be possible for a 5-year-old. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and terrible. Marcus walked over to Lily and knelt beside her chair. She looked up from her drawing, her blue eyes clear and trusting. "Lily, this nice lady is going to take you to see a doctor. They just want to make sure you are healthy. Is that okay?" Lily considered this for a moment. Then she nodded. "Will you come too?" she asked. Marcus hesitated. He should go home. His shift had ended hours ago. This was not his case anymore. But those eyes, that trust. "I will be right here when you are done," he said. Lily reached out and placed something in his hand. A drawing, still warm from her small fingers. A house, 3 stick figures inside. A woman with brown hair. A small girl with yellow hair. And a man in a blue uniform. "So you remember," Lily said simply. Then she took Priscilla's hand and walked away down the long hospital corridor, her worn blanket trailing behind her. Marcus looked at the drawing for a long time. Somewhere in this hospital, a mother lay, fighting for her life. A newborn struggled in an incubator. And a little girl who had been invisible to the entire world was finally being seen. But what would they find? What secrets had apartment 4B been keeping? And why did Marcus have the terrible feeling that the hardest part was still to come? The pediatric wing of St. Catherine's Hospital was painted in soft blues and greens, with clouds and birds decorating the walls. It was designed to comfort children, to make them feel safe, but no amount of cheerful paint could ease the weight of what was about to be discovered. Dr. Constance, Aldridge had been a pediatrician for nearly 30 years. She had seen neglect, illness, and heartbreak in all their forms. Yet something about this case made her pause before entering the examination room. The little girl sat on the table, her legs dangling over the edge, her blanket folded neatly. Beside her, she did not fidget or cry. She simply waited. "Hello, Lily," Dr. Aldridge said gently. "My name is Dr. Aldridge. I am going to check a few things to make sure you are healthy. Is that all right?" Lily nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The formality startled the doctor. Most 5-year-olds squirmed, asked questions, demanded to know when they could leave. This child responded like a small adult, trained to obey without complaint. The examination began. Height, weight, reflexes. Each measurement told a story that grew darker with every note Dr. Aldridge scribbled on her clipboard. Lily was small, for her age, too small. Her arms were thin, her ribs visible beneath pale skin. But it was her abdomen that demanded attention. Swollen, distended, completely wrong on a frame so fragile. Dr. Aldridge kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. "Lily, can you tell me what you usually eat for breakfast?" she asked casually. Lily thought for a moment. "Toast. If we have bread, sometimes crackers. And lunch? Same, or nothing. Mommy sleeps a lot during the day." "What about dinner?" Lily shrugged. "Whatever I can find." Dr. Aldridge wrote quickly, her pen pressing hard against the paper. The tests came back within the hour. Blood work, imaging, numbers that painted a devastating picture. She found Priscilla and Marcus in the hallway, both looking like they had aged years in a single night. "It is not what you feared, Dr. Aldridge began, and she saw the relief flash across their faces. "She is not pregnant. That would be medically impossible at her age." "Then what is it?" Marcus asked. Dr. Aldridge removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy. "Severe malnutrition. Her body been starving for so long that it has begun to retain fluid. Her liver is stressed from trying to function without proper nutrients. Her bones are weak." She paused. "This child has been surviving on scraps for years. Toast, crackers, whatever she could reach in the kitchen. No protein, no vegetables. Nothing a growing body needs." The silence that followed was deafening. "If this had continued another 6 months," Dr. Aldridge continued quietly, "I do not know if she would be standing in front of me today." Priscilla closed her eyes. Marcus leaned against the wall, unable to speak. "This was not cruelty," the doctor added. "I have seen cruelty. This was something different. This was a mother too sick to care for herself, let alone a child. This was poverty so deep that survival meant choosing between medicine and food. This was a system that stopped looking." She put her glasses back on and looked at both of them directly. "The question is not how did this happen. The question is, how many other children like Lily are out there right now, invisible, waiting for someone to notice?" Marcus thought of the drawings on the wall, the smiling suns, the happy houses. Little girl creating the world she wished she lived in, because the real one had forgotten she existed. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Priscilla said slowly, "we do everything we can to make sure Lily is never invisible again." But even as she said it, Marcus knew the road ahead would be long, and Helena Mercer was about to wake up to a nightmare she could not escape. 3 days passed before Helena Mercer opened her eyes. The hospital room was quiet, filled with the soft beeping of monitors and the pale light of a winter morning. Helena blinked slowly, confused, her body weak and aching. Then memory crashed over her like a wave. The pain, the bathroom floor, Lily's voice, calm and steady. A man in uniform. "My baby," she whispered, her throat dry and raw. "Lily, where is Lily?" A nurse appeared at her side, gentle hands checking the monitors. "Easy now, Mrs. Mercer, your baby is in the neonatal unit. She is small, but she is fighting. She is going to be okay." Helena let out a breath she did not know she had been holding, but the relief lasted only a moment. "And Lily? My daughter. Where is she?" The nurse hesitated. That pause, barely a second long, told Helena everything she needed to know. Something was wrong. "A social worker will be in to speak with you soon," the nurse said carefully. "Just rest for now." But Helena could not rest. Her mind spun with fear and guilt and questions that had no answers. An hour later, the door opened. A woman with gray hair and kind but serious eyes entered, followed by a man Helena recognized. The police officer, the one who had saved them. "Mrs. Mercer," the woman said, "I am Priscilla Downey from Social Services. This is Officer Marcus Dreyer." Helena tried to sit up, wincing at the effort. "Where is my daughter? Please, I need to see her." Priscilla pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "Lily is safe," she said. "She is being cared for. But we need to talk about what happens next." Helena's eyes filled with tears. "I know I made mistakes. I know things were bad, but I love her. I love both of them. Please do not take them away from me." Marcus stepped forward. His voice was not accusing, only tired. "No one is trying to punish you, Mrs. Mercer, but Lily is very sick. She has been sick for a long time, and we need to understand how to help her." Helena covered her face with trembling hands. The weight of years came crashing down. Helena told them everything. It came out slowly at first, like water seeping through cracks. Then faster, a flood she could no longer hold back. She told them about her husband, David, who promised forever and left after 2 years. How he disappeared one day, no note, no forwarding address, no child support, just gone. She told them about her parents, strict and proud, who said she had made her bed when she married against their wishes. When she called asking for help, her father said, "You chose this life. Now live it." She told them about the illness that crept in. Slowly. The exhaustion that made getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain. The pain that settled in her joints and never left. The fog in her mind that made simple tasks impossible. "I knew something was wrong with me," Helena whispered. "But doctors cost money. Medicine costs money. I had to choose between feeding Lily and finding out what was killing me." She told them about the shame. The terrible, crushing shame of watching her daughter learn to take care of herself because her mother could not. "Lily never complained," Helena said, tears streaming down her face. "She just adapted, made her own breakfast, cleaned up after me when I was too weak to move. She would bring me water and say, 'It is okay, Mommy. I will take care of you.'" Marcus listened in silence, his chest tight. "When I found out I was pregnant again, I could not accept it," Helena continued. "I kept telling myself it was not real, that if I ignored it, it would go away. I know how foolish that sounds, but I was so scared. How could I bring another child into this when I was already failing the one I had?" Priscilla leaned forward. "Why did you never ask for help? There are programs, resources." Helena laughed bitterly. "I tried once, 3 years ago. I went to an office, filled out forms, waited for hours. They said I made too much money to qualify. I was working part-time then, earning barely enough to cover rent. But on paper, I was fine." She shook her head. "After that, I stopped trying. I disappeared, and no one noticed." The room fell silent. Marcus finally spoke. "Someone noticed now. To understand Lily, you must see the world through her eyes. Morning never began with an alarm clock. It began with sunlight creeping through the torn curtain or with the growl of an empty stomach. Lily would lie still for a moment, listening. If Mommy was quiet, that meant she was sleeping. Sleeping was good. Sleeping meant the pain was not so bad. Lily would slip out of bed carefully, her small feet touching the cold floor without a sound. She had learned to be quiet. Quiet meant Mommy could rest. First, she would check on her mother. Tiptoe to the bedroom door. Peek inside. Watch for the gentle rise and fall of the blanket. If Mommy was breathing, everything was okay. Then came breakfast. Lily knew which cabinets she could reach and which ones were too high. The bottom. Shelf had crackers, sometimes bread if they were lucky. She learned to use a butter knife to spread peanut butter, back when they had peanut butter. She learned that tap water filled her stomach when there was nothing else. She did not know this was unusual. She thought all children made their own meals. She thought all mothers slept through the day and cried through the night. The television was her teacher and her friend. Old cartoons with fuzzy pictures taught her colors and numbers. She would sit cross-legged on the floor, clutching her blanket, laughing at characters who lived in bright, happy worlds. Sometimes she drew those worlds. Houses with flowers in the yard, families holding hands under yellow suns, a life that existed only on paper. When Mommy had good days, they would sit together on the couch. Helena would brush Lily's hair slowly, telling her she was beautiful, telling her she was sorry. Lily did not understand what she was sorry for. Those moments were perfect. When Mommy had bad days, Lily became the parent. She brought water, she pulled blankets up. She sang the lullaby, the same one Mommy used to sing to her. "Hush, little baby, do not say a word." One night, a few months before everything changed, Lily heard something strange. Mommy was in the bathroom talking softly, but not to Lily. She was talking to her stomach. "It will be okay, little one. Your sister is strong. She will teach you." Lily did not fully understand, but she remembered. And on the night when Mommy fell and would not wake up, Lily did not panic. She had been preparing for this moment her whole life. Lily was placed in temporary foster care while Helena recovered. The house belonged to Mrs. Dorothy Hutchins, a woman of 67 who had cared for children in crisis for over 3 decades. Her home was clean and warm, filled with the smell of fresh laundry and home-cooked meals. For most children, it would have felt like a safe haven. For Lily, it felt like a foreign country. On her first morning, she woke before dawn. Habit. She made her bed with perfect corners, smoothing every wrinkle until not a single crease remained. Then she stood beside it, hands folded, waiting. Mrs. Hutchins found her like that an hour later. "Sweetheart, what are you doing?" "Waiting," Lily said simply. "For what?" Lily did not have an answer. She just knew that she was supposed to. Wait. To be quiet. To not cause trouble. Dorothy's heart broke silently. "You do not have to make your bed like that here," she said gently. "And you do not have to wait for permission to move around. This is your home now. You can play. You can rest. You can just be a little girl." Lily nodded. Politely, but her eyes remained uncertain. The other children in the house tried to include her. They invited her to play board games, to watch cartoons, to run in the backyard. Lily watched them from a distance, like a scientist observing a species she did not quite understand. She ate everything. On her plate at every meal, even the vegetables she did not like. She thanked Mrs. Hutchins for every glass of water. She never asked for anything. At night, when the house was quiet, Lily would lie awake and stare at the ceiling. The bed was soft, softer than anything she had ever slept on. But it did not feel right. It did not smell like Mommy. One evening, Mrs. Hutchins sat beside Lily on the porch swing. "Do you want to talk about anything?" she asked. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked the question that had been burning inside her. "Is the policeman going to come back?" Dorothy hesitated. She had seen too many children abandoned by adults who made promises they never kept. "I do not know, sweetheart." Lily turned back to the darkening sky. "He will," she said softly. He has to. 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Marcus filled out forms. He did not understand, made phone calls to offices that put him on hold for hours, and answered questions from people who seemed suspicious of his motives. Why did a police officer want to visit a child who was not his family? What was his interest in this case? Had he considered that his involvement might complicate matters? Marcus had only one answer, repeated until his voice grew tired. I made her a promise. Finally, the approval came. 1 supervised visit. 1 hour. He arrived at Mrs. Hutchins's house on a gray Tuesday afternoon, carrying a paper bag that felt ridiculous in his large hands. Inside was a coloring book with flowers and butterflies, a box of crayons with 24 colors, and cookies from the bakery downtown. Dorothy met him at the door, studying him with eyes that had measured countless adults and found most of them wanting. She has been asking about you, Dorothy said, every single day. Something twisted in Marcus's chest. He found Lily in the backyard, sitting alone on a wooden bench, while other children played nearby. She was watching them, but not joining, always watching. When she saw Marcus, something shifted in her face. Not quite a smile, but close. A crack in the wall she had built around herself. You came, she said. I told you I would. They sat together on the bench. Marcus opened the coloring book, and Lily immediately reached for the yellow crayon. She always started with yellow. For a while, neither of them spoke. They simply colored side by side, the sounds of other children's laughter floating around them like music from another world. Then Lily said quietly, Mommy is sick because of me. Marcus stopped coloring. Why would you think that? Because I was not good enough. I tried to take care of her, but I did not do it right. Marcus set down his crayon and turned to face her fully. Lily, listen to me. None of this is your fault. You did everything a little girl could possibly do. You did more than most grown-ups would have done. Your mommy is sick because sometimes life is unfair, not because of anything you did. Lily's eyes glistened, but she did not cry. Do you promise? I promise. When the hour ended and Marcus had to leave, Lily handed him a drawing. So you remember to come back? She said. Marcus looked at the paper. 3 figures in a house. A mother with brown hair. A girl with yellow hair. A man in blue. He folded it carefully and placed it in his chest pocket, right over his heart. In the neonatal unit of St. Catherine's Hospital, a tiny warrior was fighting her own battle. The baby weighed less than 4 pounds. She was connected to monitors that beeped steadily, tubes that delivered nutrition her small body could not yet take on its own. The doctors called her condition serious, but stable. Helena called her hope. Every day, as Helena grew stronger, she made the journey from her room to the neonatal unit. At first, she needed a wheelchair, then a walker, then just a careful, slow walk down the long corridor. She would sit beside the incubator for hours, her hand pressed against the warm plastic, watching her daughter breathe. You are a fighter, Helena whispered, just like your sister. The nurses noticed how Helena never missed a visit, how she asked questions, learned the medical terms, tracked every ounce of weight gained. This was not a mother who had given up. This was a mother clawing her way back. 3 weeks after that terrible night, the doctors finally allowed Helena to hold her baby for the first time. A nurse placed the tiny bundle in her arms. Hope weighed barely more than a bag of sugar, but to Helena she was heavier than the whole world. Tears fell freely down Helena's cheeks as she looked at that small face, those delicate fingers, those eyes that blinked open for just a moment. I am so sorry, Helena breathed. I'm sorry I almost gave up. I am sorry I was so lost that I could not see you coming. But I see you now, and I promise I will never stop fighting for you. That evening, Priscilla came with news. The doctors say you can be discharged soon, but you cannot go back to your old apartment. Not in those conditions. Helena nodded. She had known this was coming. Where will I go? We are working on that. There are programs, but they take time. In the meantime, we need to discuss Lily. Helena's face tightened with fear. What about her? Priscilla hesitated, choosing her words carefully. There will be a hearing. A judge will decide whether Lily can come home to you or whether she needs to stay in foster care longer. Helena gripped the edge of the incubator. When? 2 weeks. 14 days to prove she could be the mother her daughters deserved. Helena looked at Hope, so small, so fragile, so full of possibility. Then I have work to do, she said quietly. Marcus could not sleep. Every night he lay awake thinking about Lily's drawing. 3 figures in a house. A family she had created on paper because the real one was falling apart. He was just a police officer. He had done his job. The case was in other hands now, but the case would not let him go. One morning, Marcus did something he had never done in 25 years on the force. He asked for help. He started at the church he had attended as a boy. Pastor Williams was older now, his hair white, his steps slower. But his eyes still held the same kindness Marcus remembered. Marcus told him about Helena and Lily, not the private details, just enough to paint the picture. A mother who fell through the cracks, a child who became invisible, a family that needed a second chance. Pastor Williams listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, the old man nodded slowly. What do you need? I do not know yet. A place for them to live, maybe. People who care. A community. The pastor smiled. Then let us build one. Word spread quietly through Ridgewood. Not gossip, but compassion. A retired teacher, named Mrs. Patterson, offered to tutor Lily when she returned home. The owner of a second-hand furniture store donated a bed, a dresser, and a crib. Women from the church quilting circle made blankets for both girls. But the biggest surprise came from a man named Arthur Brennan. Arthur was 72, a widower who owned a small apartment building on Maple Street. His daughter had died years ago from a chronic illness, leaving behind 2 grandchildren he raised alone. He understood what it meant to struggle. He understood what it meant to need grace. I have an empty unit, Arthur told Marcus over coffee. Ground floor, 2 bedrooms, heat that works. The lady and her girls can stay there while she gets back on her feet. Rent can wait. Marcus stared at him. Why would you do this? Arthur shrugged, stirring his coffee slowly. Because someone did it for me once, and because that little girl deserves a chance. That night, Marcus called Priscilla with the news. A home was waiting. Now they just needed the judge to say yes. The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray. Helena woke before dawn, too nervous to sleep. She dressed carefully in borrowed clothes, a navy blouse, and dark pants that Priscilla had found for her. She brushed her hair until it shone, applied a little color to her pale cheeks. She wanted to look like a mother who had her life together, even if she was still putting the pieces back in place. The courthouse was an old brick building with long hallways that echoed every footstep. Helena walked beside Priscilla, her heart pounding so loud she was certain everyone could hear it. Marcus was already there, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom. He wore his dress uniform, every button polished, every crease sharp. When he saw Helena, he stood. How are you holding up? He asked. Helena tried to smile. Ask me again in an hour. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. A judge's bench at the front, tables for lawyers, a few rows of wooden seats. It felt less like a place of justice and more like a place where futures were decided by strangers. Judge Diane Ashford entered, and everyone rose. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and glasses that sat low on her nose. Her expression gave nothing away. The hearing began. Priscilla presented the case. She spoke about Helena's illness, her isolation, the circumstances that led to Lily's neglect. She spoke about the progress Helena had made, the treatment she was receiving, the support system forming around her. The state's attorney asked hard questions. How could the court be sure this would not happen again? What guarantees could Helena offer? Was she truly capable of caring for 2 children? Helena answered each question honestly. She did not make excuses. She did not blame others. "I failed my daughter," she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "I let my fear and my shame become more important than asking for help. But I am not the same woman I was 2 months ago. I am fighting now. For myself, for Lily, for hope." Then Marcus was called to speak. He walked to the front of the room, feeling every eye upon him. He was not a lawyer. He did not have fancy words. He only had the truth. "I have been a police officer for 25 years, he began. "I have seen families broken by violence, by addiction, by cruelty. This is not one of those families." He looked at Helena. "This is a family that needs a chance." Marcus continued, his voice filling the small courtroom. "When I arrived at that apartment, I expected the worst. But what I found was a little girl who had done everything in her power to keep her family alive. She called for help. She guided me to her mother. She brought towels and blankets without being asked." He paused, letting the words settle. "Lily Mercer is 5 years old, and on that night, she showed more courage and love than most adults I have met in my entire career." Judge Ashford listened without expression, but her pen had stopped moving. "This family did not fail because of bad intentions," Marcus continued. "They failed because the world stopped paying attention, neighbors who heard things but did not want to get involved, schools that never asked where the little girl was, a healthcare system that turned away a sick woman because her paperwork was not right." His voice grew stronger. "If this court separates Lily from her mother permanently, it will be sending a message. That love is not enough. That trying is not enough. That once you fall, you do not deserve a hand to help you up." He shook his head slowly. "I refuse to believe that. And I do not think this court believes it either." When Marcus returned to his seat, the room was silent. Next came Dr. Constance Aldridge, appearing by video from the hospital. Her testimony was medical, but deeply human. "Lily Mercer suffered from severe malnutrition," she explained, "but she also showed remarkable resilience. With proper care and nutrition, she has already begun to recover. Physically, she will heal." The doctor paused. "What concerns me more is the emotional healing. This child needs stability. She needs to know that the people who love her will not disappear. Removing her permanently from her mother could cause damage that lasts a lifetime." Judge Ashford finally spoke. "Dr. Aldridge, in your professional opinion, is Helena Mercer capable of caring for her children with proper support?" The doctor did not hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor. I believe she is." The judge removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. The weight of the decision pressed visibly upon her shoulders. "I will take a 1-hour recess to consider the evidence," she announced. "Court will reconvene at 2 o'clock. Helena grabbed Marcus's hand, her fingers trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus squeezed back. "It is not over yet." The hours stretched like taffy, slow and agonizing. Helena sat in the hallway outside. The courtroom, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Priscilla brought her water that she did not drink. Marcus paced near the window, watching the gray clouds gather over Ridgewood. None of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. Everything that could be argued had been argued. Every truth that could be told had been told. Now it was in the hands of a woman they barely knew, a judge who would decide the fate of a family based on documents and testimonies and whatever wisdom she had gathered in her years on the bench. Helena thought about Lily. Right now, her Daughter was at Mrs. Hutchins's house, probably sitting by the window, waiting, always waiting. That child had spent her entire short life waiting for something good to happen. Please, Helena prayed silently, please let something good happen. At exactly 2 o'clock, the bailiff opened the courtroom. Doors. Court is back in session. They filed back in, taking their seats with the heavy movements of people carrying invisible weights. The state's attorney shuffled papers. Priscilla straightened her jacket. Marcus sat behind Helena, close enough that she could feel his steady presence. Judge. Diane Ashford entered, and everyone rose. She settled into her chair, arranged her notes, and looked out at the small gathering before her. Her face was unreadable, a mask perfected by years of delivering news that changed lives forever. Please be seated, she said. The rustle of movement. The creak of wooden benches. Then silence. Judge Ashford began to speak. I have presided over hundreds of cases involving child welfare. Each one is unique, and each one weighs heavily on my conscience. The decisions we make in this room ripple outward in ways we cannot always predict. A child removed from a dangerous home may flourish in foster care, or she may spend years longing for the family she lost. A child returned to a struggling parent may thrive with proper support, or she may fall through the cracks once more. She paused, her eyes moving from the state's attorney to Priscilla to Helena. There are no guarantees in this work. Only judgments made with the best information available and the sincere hope that we are choosing wisely. Helena held her breath. In the matter of Lily Mercer, the judge continued, I have reviewed the evidence thoroughly. I have heard testimony from medical professionals, social workers, and law enforcement. I have read reports detailing the conditions in which this child was found, and I have read reports documenting the progress her mother has made in the weeks since. She removed her glasses and set them on the bench. What I see is not a story of willful neglect or intentional harm. What I see is a story of poverty, illness, isolation, and a system that failed to catch a family before they fell too far. Helena Mercer did not wake up one day and decide to let her daughter suffer. She was drowning, and no one threw her a rope. Helena's tears began to fall silently. However, Judge Ashford continued, her tone sharpening slightly, understanding the causes does not erase the consequences. Lily Mercer experienced years of inadequate nutrition, missed medical care, and educational neglect. These are serious matters that cannot be dismissed simply because the intentions behind them were not malicious. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He had seen cases turn on a single word, a single phrase. The judge's tone could shift like wind before a storm. The question before this court, Judge Ashford said, is not whether mistakes were made. They were. The question is whether Helena Mercer, with appropriate support and oversight, can provide a safe and nurturing home for her daughters going forward. She picked up a document from her desk. I have reviewed the proposed plan submitted by Social Services. Supervised. Home visits twice monthly for the first 6 months, then monthly for an additional 6 months. Mandatory medical appointments for both children. Enrollment in support programs for single mothers. Continued treatment for Mrs. Mercer's chronic health condition. She looked directly at Helena. I have. Also reviewed the testimony of Officer Marcus Dreyer and the generous offer made by Mr. Arthur Brennan to provide housing at reduced cost. I have seen the letters from community members offering tutoring, child care assistance, and other forms of support. For the first time, something softened in the judge's expression. It is rare, in my experience, for a family in crisis to have so many people willing to stand beside them. It speaks to something in Helena Mercer and her daughter that has inspired others to help. That is not nothing. In fact, it may be everything. She straightened in her chair. Therefore, it is the ruling of this court that Lily Mercer shall be returned to the custody of her mother, Helena Mercer, effective immediately. This custody is conditional upon full compliance with the supervision and support plan outlined by the Department of Family Services. Any failure to meet these conditions will result in an immediate review of this decision. Helena let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. Priscilla grabbed her hand. Marcus closed his eyes and let out a breath he had been holding for weeks. Furthermore, the judge added, the infant known as Hope, Mercer shall remain under her mother's care, with the same conditions applied. Judge Ashford looked at Helena with an expression that was almost gentle. Mrs. Mercer, you have been given a second chance, not because you deserve it more than other mothers in similar situations, but because circumstances aligned in your favor. People believed in you. Do not waste their faith. Helena nodded, unable to speak through her tears. There is one more matter, the judge said. The minor child, Lily, has been observing these proceedings from an adjacent room, as is protocol in sensitive cases. She may enter now, if the mother wishes. Helena's voice cracked. Yes, please. Yes. The side door opened, and Lily stepped through. She was wearing a yellow dress that Mrs. Hutchins had picked out for the occasion. Her hair was brushed and tied with a small ribbon. She looked so small standing. There, so fragile, scanning the room with those eyes that had seen too much. Then she saw her mother. For a moment, neither of them moved. The entire courtroom held its breath. Then Lily ran. She ran across the courtroom floor, her small shoes slapping against the wood, and she threw herself into Helena's arms with a force that nearly knocked them both over. Helena held her daughter so tightly, rocking back and forth, tears streaming down both their faces. 5 years of fear and loneliness and desperate love poured out in that single embrace. I am here, Helena whispered into Lily's hair. I am here, baby. I am not going anywhere. Never again. Lily clung to her mother, her small body shaking. I knew you would come back, she said. I knew it. From his seat, Marcus watched them. His eyes were wet, though he would never admit it later. Priscilla appeared beside him, her own composure cracking. You did a good thing, Officer Dreyer. Marcus shook his head. I just answered a phone call. No, Priscilla said softly. You stayed. That is what mattered. As if hearing those words, Lily suddenly pulled away from her mother. She looked around the courtroom until she found Marcus. Then she ran again. She crashed into him, her thin arms wrapping around his waist, her face buried against his uniform. You came back, she said, her voice muffled. You promised and you came back. Marcus knelt down so he was at her level. He looked into those blue eyes, still too old for her face, but brighter now, full of something that had been missing before. Hope. I told you I would, he said. Lily smiled, a real smile, the first one he had ever seen from her. The good guys always come back, she said. Marcus smiled too, despite himself. Yeah, he said quietly. I guess they do. 6 months later, spring had finally come to Ridgewood. The trees along Maple Street were bursting with blossoms, pink and white petals drifting lazily on the warm breeze. Children rode bicycles on the sidewalks. Neighbors waved to each other from porches. Life, in all its ordinary beauty, was happening. And in the small ground-floor apartment at number 412, a family was learning how to live again. Helena stood at the kitchen counter preparing breakfast. Real breakfast. Eggs scrambled with cheese, toast with butter, orange juice in matching glasses, and sliced strawberries arranged in a small bowl. Her hands were steady now, moving with a confidence that had taken months to rebuild. She was not cured. The doctors had been honest with her about that. Her condition would require management for the rest of her life. Medication every morning, checkups every few months, days when the fatigue would win and she would need to rest. But she was not fighting alone anymore. The apartment was modest. 2 small bedrooms, a living room that doubled as everything else, a kitchen where 2 people could barely pass each other. But it was clean. It was warm. And every wall told a story. Drawings covered nearly every surface. Not the old drawings, faded and desperate, taped to cracked plaster with yellowed tape. These were new, bright explosions of color, butterflies with wings of purple and gold, rainbows arching over green hills, families holding hands under enormous yellow suns. Lily's artwork had changed in the past 6 months. The figures were no longer alone. The houses had doors that were open, not closed. The suns had rays that reached all the way to the edges of the paper, as if determined to touch everything. From the small bedroom came a sound that never failed to make Helena smile. Baby laughter. Hope was 6 months old now, a chubby, bright-eyed miracle with her mother's dark hair and her sister's stubborn spirit. She had spent her first weeks in an incubator, fighting battles no infant should have to fight. But she had won. Every day she grew stronger, louder, more determined to make her presence known. The doctors called her a fighter. Lily called her Florzinha, Little Flower. Helena called her proof that second chances were real. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, already dressed for school. Her uniform was neat, her shoes tied in careful. Bows, her hair brushed and pulled back with a yellow ribbon. She looked like any other first grader getting ready for a normal Tuesday morning. But she was not any other first grader, and today was not a normal Tuesday. "Mommy," Lily said, her voice carrying that particular weight that meant a serious question was coming. "What if the other kids do not like me?" Helena set down the spatula and wiped her hands on a dish towel. She crossed the small kitchen and knelt down so she was at eye level with her daughter. "Why do you think they would not like you?" Lily shrugged, looking at her. "Shoes. Because I am different. I do not know the games they play. I do not know the songs they sing. I was not there when they learned everything." Helena's heart ached. Her daughter had missed so much. Years of preschool, play dates, birthday parties, all the small moments that teach children how to be children. Those years could not be given back, but new years could be built. "Lily, look at me," Helena said gently. Those blue eyes, still too wise for their years, met hers. "You are different. That is true. But different is not bad. Different means you have your own story, your own way of seeing the world. And anyone who takes the time to know you is going to discover something amazing." "What?" Helena smiled. "That you are the bravest, kindest, most loving girl I have ever known. And if some kids do not see that right away, that is okay. The right friends will find you. They always do." Lily considered this seriously, the way she considered everything. Then she nodded. "Okay, Mommy." The school bus arrived at 8:15, right on schedule. Helena walked Lily to the corner, Hope balanced on her hip, wrapped in a soft blanket against the morning chill. Other parents were gathered there too, chatting about weather and schedules and weekend plans. Normal things. Ordinary things. Helena was still learning how to be part of that world. 6 months ago, she could barely leave her apartment. Now she exchanged waves with Mrs. Patterson from next door. She knew the names of the children on Lily's bus. She was becoming, slowly but surely, a member of a community. The bus doors opened with a hiss. Lily climbed the steps, then turned and waved from the window. Her face was nervous but determined. Helena waved back, her free hand pressed against her heart. "She is going to be great," Mrs. Patterson said, appearing beside her. "That girl has something special." "She does," Helena agreed. "She really does." The afternoon sun was warm through the kitchen window when a knock came at the door. Helena opened it to find Marcus standing on the porch. He was out of uniform. Today, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, looking almost like a different person. In his hands was a familiar brown paper bag. "Cookies from the bakery," he said. Oatmeal raisin. Mrs. Patterson mentioned they are Lily's favorite. Helena smiled and stepped aside. You know you do not have to keep bringing gifts every time. I know, Marcus said, setting the bag on the counter. But the bakery is on my way, and I like seeing Lily's face when she finds them. He visited once or twice a month now, not as Officer Dreyer, not as a representative of any official system, just as Marcus, a friend, who had been there on the worst night of their lives and had chosen, for reasons Helena still did not fully understand, to stay for the better days that followed. Hope gurgled happily from her high chair, reaching chubby arms toward the visitor she had come to recognize. She is getting big, Marcus observed, letting the baby grab his finger. She is. Doctor says she has completely caught up. No lasting effects from the early delivery. Helena shook her head in wonder. They call it a miracle. I call it stubbornness. She gets it from her sister. Marcus laughed, a rare sound that made the small apartment feel warmer. They sat at the kitchen table while Helena made coffee, talking about ordinary things. The weather, Marcus's upcoming retirement, the community garden that Pastor Williams was organizing. It was the kind of conversation that would have been impossible 6 months ago. The kind of conversation that belonged to normal people living normal lives. Helena was beginning to believe she might be one of those people after all. At 3:30, the school bus returned. Helena heard it before she saw it. The familiar rumble of the engine, the squeak of brakes. She was at the door. Before it fully stopped, her heart racing with the anxiety that had not quite faded, the fear that something might have gone wrong. But then the doors opened, and Lily burst out like a small explosion of energy, her backpack bouncing, her face flushed, her eyes bright with something Helena had rarely seen before, pure, uncomplicated joy. "Mommy! Mommy! I made a friend!" Lily crashed into Helena's arms, words tumbling out faster than she could catch them. "Her name is Sophia, and she has a dog named Biscuit, and she likes drawing too, and she said my son was the prettiest one in the whole class, and she wants to sit with me at lunch tomorrow, and she asked if I could come to her house sometime and play." Helena held her daughter tight, laughing and crying at the same time. "That is wonderful, baby. I told you it would be okay." "You were right, Mommy. You were right." Lily pulled back, suddenly noticing Marcus standing in the doorway. "Officer Marcus!" She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist with the fearless affection she had only recently learned to show. "Guess what? I got a gold star today. For my drawing." "A gold star?" Marcus raised his eyebrows with exaggerated impressiveness. "That is serious business. What did you draw?" Lily's excitement shifted into something quieter, more serious. She stepped back and reached into her backpack, pulling out a piece of paper that she had clearly been protecting all day. "Our teacher asked us to draw a hero," she said, softly. "Everyone drew superheroes and firefighters and astronauts." She held out the paper. "I drew you." Marcus took the drawing with hands that were not quite steady. A man in a blue uniform stood in a doorway. The blue was crayon bright, carefully colored within the lines. Near the man's eyes, small drops of lighter blue, tears, and beneath the figure, in the wobbly handwriting of a 6-year-old who was still learning her letters, were the words, "The man who did not go away." Marcus stared at the drawing for a long time. The kitchen was silent except for Hope's soft babbling and the ticking of the clock on the wall. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. "Lily, I do not know what to say." Lily climbed onto the chair beside him, her expression earnest. "Mrs. Callahan asked why I drew a policeman instead of Superman or Batman. I told her because you are real. You came when we needed help, and you kept coming back." She reached out and touched the drawing gently. "That is what real heroes do. They do not just save you one time and then fly away. They stay. They come back. They remember." Marcus's throat was tight. He thought about all the calls he had answered in 25 years, all the doors he had knocked on, all the lives he had touched and then moved on from, never knowing what happened next. This time he had stayed, and it had made all the difference. "Lily," he said, his voice rough, "I want you to know something. That night, when you called, you saved your family, not me, you. You were brave enough to ask for help. That is the hardest thing in the world for anyone to do." Lily shook her head firmly. "I just made a phone call. You did everything else." "We did it together," Marcus said. "That is how it works. Nobody saves anybody alone." Lily considered this with her usual seriousness. Then she smiled. "Okay. We are both heroes then." Marcus laughed, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Deal." Later that evening, after Marcus had gone home and the dishes were washed and Hope was sleeping peacefully in her crib, Helena sat, with Lily on the couch. They looked through the photo album that Priscilla had helped them start, pictures from the past 6 months. Lily at her first real doctor's checkup, healthy and grinning. Hope coming home from the hospital, tiny and perfect. The apartment on Maple Street, empty at first, then slowly filling with donated furniture and handmade quilts and life. And one photo that Helena kept on her nightstand. Lily, Marcus, and herself on the courthouse steps, the day the supervision officially ended. The day they stopped being a case file and became just a family. "Mommy," Lily said. Lily, sleepily, her head resting against her mother's shoulder. "Are we going to be okay now? For real?" Helena wrapped her arm around her daughter and pulled her close. "Yes, baby. We are going to be okay. For real. You promise?" Helena thought about all the promises that had been broken in her life. The husband who promised forever. The parents who promised unconditional love. The system that promised to help. But she also thought about the promises that had been kept. Marcus, returning again and again. Priscilla fighting through bureaucracy. Arthur Brennan offering a home to strangers. A whole community deciding that one family was worth saving. "I promise," Helena said. Lily's eyes fluttered closed, her breathing slowly deepening into sleep. Helena sat there for a long time, holding her daughter, listening to Hope's soft snores from the bedroom, watching the last light of day fade. From the windows, she thought about the woman she had been a year ago, broken, invisible, convinced that she had nothing left to offer the world. She thought about Lily, that impossibly brave little girl who had carried a weight no child should ever carry, and who had somehow emerged not hardened, but hopeful. She thought about Marcus's words. Nobody saves anybody alone. It was true. She had not saved herself. She had been saved by 100 small kindnesses. A phone call answered, a hand extended, a door opened, a promise kept. And now it was her turn to pass it on. Tomorrow, she would wake, up early, make breakfast, walk Lily to the bus, go to her part-time job at the community center, where she helped other struggling mothers navigate the systems that had once overwhelmed her, come home, make dinner, read bedtime stories, do it all again the next day. It was not a glamorous life. It was not the life she had once imagined for herself, but it was hers. And it was good. Outside, the stars appeared one by one over Ridgewood. The same stars that had watched over them on that cold November night, when everything had seemed impossible. They were still watching now. And somewhere in the small apartment on Maple Street, a little girl dreamed of yellow suns and happy houses and heroes who always come back. Because sometimes, that is all it takes. One person who answers the call. One person who refuses to look away. One person who stays. And from that single act of kindness, everything can change. The end.